always, if you want to interact during the meeting, you can unmute yourself and just interrupt me. My name is Amy, so you can just be like, hey, Amy, wait, pause. Or you are welcome to raise your hand there on your actions that you can do as a participant, or throw them in the chat box. I have that opened as well. So welcome back to our 12 days of systems to move you from ideas to action. We're going to continue exploring some of the different methods of lead generation today by diving into hosting open houses that are out of this world and that drive leads into your business. And we're also going to add in lead generation, niche markets, creating a VIP group, and forget the farm, or like thinking bigger when it comes to door knocking. So the open house was supposed to be last week. I had to cancel that. I apologize again for that. But we're going to cover that one today along with what was originally planned. As with other forms of lead generation, I believe that open houses should fit just about into everyone's business plan because they're so easy, especially if you're a new agent. And you should host opens, right? So we talked about this, and we talked about like leads from listings. We talked about it if you're doing a farm, like you might be hosting open houses on those instances, although it may not be your primary, one of your 3 methods of lead generation. So you might run it a little bit differently than if it's your actual lead generation form. Okay. So just like any other lead generation that we've talked about, it really comes down to systems and processes. So that's what we're talking about today. I know, no surprise. Our learning objectives for the open house portion of today's training are that we are going to talk about creating an open house system. There's that S&P word, right? Systems and processes. Then we're going to break that system down to talk about how to pick the right house to hold open, talk about what to do in preparation for your open house, talk about strategies for actually hosting the open house, and then we're going to wrap up by talking about the follow-up plan. Okay. It's important to remember that when we are talking about open houses, today we're talking about the purpose of open houses as one of your forms of lead generation. So remember, you should have your database, you should have leads from listings, and then you're going to choose 3 additional forms of lead generation that you're going to create those systems and processes around. So that's what we're talking about today. Our whole point of open houses is for lead generation and to collect potential buyer and seller leads. So if that's not your purpose for holding the house open, then you may as well not hold it open, because there's really truly no other reason to hold an open house, right? Only 1% of homes sell from the open house. Okay. So having a system in place to execute, make sure that you stay focused on that prize of lead generation, and you do the things that are going to lead you into adding people to your database that are going to turn into transactions. I personally think that the best way to do this is by breaking it down into daily activities. Again, we're going back to those systems and processes, daily activities, and we'll be walking through some of those ideas to prep and follow through each day of the week leading up to your open house and after the open house. For the purpose of today's training, we're going to move through this system as if the open house is going to be on either Saturday or Sunday, or both, right? There's no reason you can't host it on both, but that's what we're moving towards, is that the open's going to be on the weekend. If you're hosting a different day or time, just adjust accordingly. Just change the days around. Okay. So super simple. There is no wrong or right answer to that. You don't have to host open on the weekend. You could host it on a Tuesday evening or a Wednesday afternoon, kind of whatever you think is going to get you the most pull in your market, with, again, the thought process that you are lead generating. Okay. Also, if this is your form of lead generation, you should look at your annual calendar, and you should already have every weekend marked that you're going to be hosting open houses. You should know the days and times that you're going to be hosting, or at least the days, or what weekends you'll be hosting and what weekends you're going to be off. And again, you'll hear me say this multiple times as you go through my trainings. Don't underestimate the power of taking time off each week. So if you're hosting an open on the weekend, think about another time that you can be off so that you can relax and recharge your batteries. Taking days off is important. Otherwise, you will have burnout. All right, so let's get started with our open house system and process. Again, if you have questions, feel free to just unmute yourself, interrupt me. You can throw it in the chat box or you can raise your hand. Either way works. We're going to start, again, we're hosting it on either Saturday or Sunday. So we're going to start our process on Tuesday. Okay. So Tuesday, our goal is going to select what house we're going to hold open that coming weekend. You may want to start by determining what time you will hold it open. You're probably going to want somewhere between 2 to 4 hours long. There's different train of thoughts on that. There's, again, it's your business. There's no wrong answer. And you may want to try different times on different days as you begin this process to figure out which is going to get you the best response in your market. I recommend a 2-hour open house with a 30-minute pre-open for the neighbors. That's just my recommendation. I think we can funnel people through and get sufficient leads in those 2 hours if you plan it accordingly. And again, like play with the times to see what's going to get you the best results. And what might bring you the best results on a Saturday is probably going to be different than a Sunday. Okay. And different than like a Wednesday. So play around and figure out what works for you. Next, the home selection or which home you choose is going to be super important to the success of your open house. My first choice is always going to be hosting my own listing open. It serves a couple purposes. Number one, I don't have to ask permission. I'm in charge of all the marketing. I'm in charge of making sure it gets put in the MLS. So it's the easiest. Number two, it keeps my sellers happy because sellers still think that open houses sell homes, even though we know they don't. It's only a 1% chance that that's going to sell a home, but it does keep your seller happy. So hosting your own listing open would be my first choice. If you don't have your own listings, or maybe your listing's in a bad location, then you're going to need to start reaching out to other agents to see if you can host open their listing. Okay. And please make sure that you know the rules of your specific brokerage because you may be limited to listings listed by only agents in your office, while other brokers may be okay with hosting open houses for listings by agents in other offices. So just know the rules of your office. So my first choice outside of my own listing, if I have a farm, if farm is part of my lead gen, would be to host a listing in my farm. Okay, again, I'm all for doing double duty, and listing in my farm is going to do that because it's going to help to establish my presence in that farm, and it's also going to help with lead generation and just creating relationships with those neighbors. Okay, outside of those two options, highly desired homes to hold open fall into 3 categories. Number one is you want to look for homes that are new to the market. Right? Those that are experiencing their first weekend on market, they're fresh. They're going to get a lot of eyes on them. So that would be first choice. The next option would be homes that are in a category of being low inventory, right? So maybe the market's lacking single story homes. Find those. If there's a highly desired neighborhoods where listings don't come up often and there's a listing there, snatch it up for the open, right? So look for low inventory options. The third category would be homes priced in the mid-range for your market, right? Stay away from those upper end and also stay away from the bottom of the market. Look for the middle of the market because you're going to pull the biggest opportunity of potentially qualified buyers and sellers from those homes in that middle of the market price range. Okay, so that would be my next choice. So if it's not my own listing, it's not part of my farm, then I'm going to look for homes that fit one of these 3 categories. Once you think you have the home selected, then we want to look at the location of the home. We want to make sure that that house is going to be easy to find, right? So if it takes 10 signs just to get to the house, then people aren't going to make it there. They're going to get bored or lost on the way. They're going to give up, right? Even if you have plenty of signage. So make sure that you choose a home that only takes a couple of turns from the main road to get to it. Also, you could look for homes that are nearby area amenities, near schools, recreation, shopping. That's going to help you draw in more visitors. Okay. Any questions about picking the right home? The other thing that I like to do too is I look at the vacant homes first. So if I'm getting ready to host an open house, it's not going to be my listing or in my farm. I actually pull up the list of like new properties on market that show up as vacant in our MLS because they have less things for people to walk away with. I've never had anything walk away from an open house, but I also prefer vacant homes over occupied homes. It just makes it my job easier. Okay, so on Tuesday, in addition to picking the right house, we are going to begin creating our promotion or our marketing materials. So we want to make sure that we ask the listing agent to make sure to put that open house in the MLS, right? If you're the listing agent, make sure you put it in the MLS for days and times. Most MLSs syndicate out to everywhere else, but if you have one that does not syndicate out, like to places like Zillow or Realtor, whatever, then you may want to ask them to put those in there. Maybe that's something that you can do as well. So if it's not going to push out to those other sites, make sure that you get those days and times in those other sites. Then you're going to make the creative. So we want to make a flyer for promotion and for door knocking. You want to make the social media posts so if they're all ready to go. Oftentimes I like to use maybe like Canva for those. The nice thing about Canva is that you can make a folder in Canva. Number one, it's free. You can just use the free options. Number two is you can create a folder in Canva and have your templates in there. So you can call it like open houses. And then every time you have a new open house, you just go in there and you update the information on the template. So you already have social media posts ready to go. You have your open house flyers, you have your door knocking flyer, and all you do is go in there and update the house information, new pictures, new address, new description, right? Super simple. So I do like it for that. The other nice thing about that is if we have a system in place and we have templates set up, is that as you begin growing your team, because you're so successful with open houses, it makes your system easy to follow and repeatable. And it makes it easy to hand off those jobs to an admin, right? So finally, the last step for Tuesday is going to be that you're going to travel to the property and you're going to put up the open house sign or the sign writer to let people know that the home's going to be open on Saturday from 2 to 4. Right? So we want to start getting that marketing out there on the house itself. So make sure you have sign writers available. Sometimes they have ones that you can like write in on and then erase and repeat for the next week. That's hard in the wintertime, or if you live in an area where it rains too much, it might wipe it off. So you may need some pre-printed ones with different dates and times that you might host open houses so that you can let people know. That way you're capturing all that drive-by traffic, right? My goal is with the open house, don't tell the listing agent this, but my goal is that I'm going to put that sign writer on there, and then somebody that's driving by the house that maybe doesn't have an agent, instead of then calling the number on the sign, they're going to be like, oh, look, it's going to be open on Saturday. I'll just wait and go buy it on Saturday. Now they've become my client instead of the listing agent's client. So just something to keep in mind there. So Tuesday is open house selection, MLS input, and create those marketing materials. Any questions before we move on to Wednesday? Okay, this is day one of open house prep. In case you joined a little late, I started on Tuesday for a Saturday or Sunday open house. Wednesday is gonna be, yeah, go ahead.
I do have a quick question. Let me just flick this camera on real quick. So obviously the open houses definitely believe in them. So ground floor is there, but I have noticed in a low inventory environment with higher desirable homes, we have had trouble, at least I'm in Charleston, with listing a home, and then by the time the open house would be, they've already gone under contract. Do you have any kind of guidance there?
Yeah, so that's just sad. No, we have in our area, a lot of the agents have kind of have an unspoken agreement that we oftentimes will leave the property on the market for a week before we review offers, especially when it's highly desired, just to give people, number one, it makes it easier on our sellers because we don't have them trying to schedule 63 appointments on day one on market. And number two, it gives everybody the opportunity to see the property, which benefits the seller by allowing multiple offers to come in and to drive the price higher. So we kind of have this unspoken rule. So if it's your own listing, you could set that with your sellers to delay that offer review and just know what your MLS rules are locally for that. We usually have to have it in writing and signed by the seller that that's their intention. Otherwise, highly desired area, we may look for a property maybe that's been sitting a little bit longer, talk with the agency if they're talking about doing a price reduction or something to that effect. The other thing is, as we'll talk about, I think it's one of my Wednesday activities, is I like to create a list of other properties on the market that I have with me at the open house. And so it may be that the sellers are still looking for a backup offer. So you still want to host that open house with the chances that they might get a backup offer and to bring leads through. And you can have other homes available for them to see as well that maybe came on the market later in the week.
Okay. No, it's good. It's just kind of like a weird thing to like all of
Yeah.
a sudden, because it's like I sat there and you read like the traditional books and like this schedule works well, except we had to kind of modify it a little bit for a market where things were selling in 24 hours, which was
24
kind of
hours.
crazy.
Yeah,
We
and
still,
it may be too that with a super high market, you take everything and instead of doing it, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we do everything on Friday. Like Friday is just our open house prep day, and we spend all day on Friday on open houses. We do our other lead gen methods Monday through Thursday.
okay. No, I like that flexibility because obviously when the market can change, all of a sudden it's like we're sitting there with like this great recipe to go make an awesome open house, and
Yep.
we're like, shoot.
Yeah. I mean, you ultimately could lump it all into one day. Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. All right. Wednesday, you're going to move into the prep work for the open. The items that are going to support your activities for the rest of the week. So first thing is that we're going to confirm that the listing agent put it into the MLS with the correct days and times. Okay. Secondly, I like to create a Google Drive folder for all of my open houses. And I'm going to put all of my materials for the open into that folder. And then what I do is I create a shortcut on the folder from the folder onto my phone. Okay. That allows me to be able to access that folder really quickly during the open house. So if somebody that comes to the open house wants additional information, makes it really easy for me to share either a document from that folder or the full folder for that open house visitor. And I usually just have one copy of all of my materials there at the open house with it written on there like house copy, so people don't walk away with it for people to view. And then if they want that information, they actually have to give me solid contact information so I can send it to them. Okay. Excuse me.
How do you create a shortcut on
Say
your
that
phone?
again, Gloria?
How do you create a shortcut on your phone?
Yeah, so you can have your Google Drive on your phone, and if you open it up, you can go to the folder that you created, and if you once you're in that folder, your phone should give you the option that you can create a shortcut to your desktop or put the link on your desktop or your home screen is what it's called. It's not a desktop, it's a home screen on your phone.
Oh, okay. I'll play with that. Thanks.
Yeah. In my Google Drive, you're going to find the property flyer. You're going to find my list reports that has nearby attractions, schools, nearby amenities. I'll show you that here in a second if you aren't familiar with it. Other neighborhood listings. So everything else in the neighborhood that's active, I throw in there. And then other listings. So as I mentioned when I was talking with Stephen, I create lists for potential visitors. If they didn't like the home I'm having open, why do I think that would be and what would they want instead? Right? So like maybe I'm holding open a 3-bedroom home and I'm thinking, well, somebody who walks in off the street, they may be like, oh, bummer, I need a 4-bedroom home. So I'm going to go and pull from the MLS a list of all of the homes that have 4 bedrooms in the area. Or maybe this one doesn't have a pool, or maybe it does have a pool and somebody coming through might not want a pool. So then I'll create a list of homes that are similar to that one that don't have the pool, right? So I'm just going to think about things. If it has a small yard, maybe homes with a bigger yard. So just kind of thinking about like somebody doesn't like this house. Why would that be? Okay, maybe this one needs a whole bunch of work and I'm gonna pull the other listings in town that all are completely like move in ready, fixed up, have been flipped, whatever that is, right? And I'm gonna create a couple lists like that and throw them in that Google Drive folder. And then I also make sure that I have any pre-sale inspections and any seller disclosures that were provided in that folder as well. Okay, so I just have everything that might go with that property. Now, hold on, because I had, let me see what I did with my list reports. Give me just a second, because I had it pulled up a minute ago. Now I just have to find it so I can share it with you. All right, give me just a second, and we will find list reports. There we go. All right, if you haven't heard of list reports, it's listreports.com. I think it's in all states. I would assume it is, but here's what that looks like. It allows you to go in there and create marketing kits for properties. If it's your listing, it'll do it automatically for you as long as you have your information in there and link it in. If not, you can go in there and create marketing kits. So, and then once you create that marketing kit, it's going to create social media shareables for you. Look, you don't even have to do that if you're not very creative or you don't want to spend time in Canva or anywhere else. It creates a just listed open house under contract recently sold social media shareables. So you can pull that open house information. You can pair this. There's a paid version where you have a lender that has access and they can pair with you. And then it makes it free for you, but you get their upgraded options. There's open house flyers already created for you. It pulls all this information from that property from the MLS. So you just saved yourself time. And then you have these infographics. See if I can get it to open up my infographics. You can edit the infographic so it shows like the convenience of the property, how close is it to ATM, coffee shops, gas stations, groceries, gyms, cleaners, movie theaters, right? So it shows like a walkability score. It tells you what activities are nearby, dog parks, golf courses, hiking, lakes. This is where I edit it because ours does not pull this information. So I always add in our dog park, our hiking, and the lake, because that's our nearby attractions in addition to whatever it pulled up. So you can edit that so it makes it really fun. It just equates people with the neighborhood that maybe don't know it. Neighborhood Eats, it talks about the different types of restaurants that are in the area, the price range of those restaurants. There's 16 with at least 4 stars. And then it also pulls the schools for the area and gives their great schools ratings. So way fun and easy way to pull that information. So I'd have a copy of that on the counter for people to view as well as in my Google Drive. So that's listreports.com. If you're not familiar with that, you want to use it, that's where you find it. It's free. All right. Let me go back to the share. All right. So that goes in my Google Drive. Okay. In addition to my Google Drive that I create, or my Google Drive folder, I would make sure that my open house box is stocked. And inside of my open house, I would put all the copies of everything in my Google Drive in that open house box. I would make sure there's copies of my sign-in sheets. Maybe if you're going to do waters or beverages or any snacks, make sure that's stocked in there. Make sure you've got business cards in there, and make sure that you have pins in there as well. I may also include like booties, because I may get to the house and realize that the seller really wanted everybody to remove their shoes. So then I provide booties in case people don't want to remove their shoes, right? So things like that you may include, or maybe even include those because somebody may walk in the door and you look at their feet and you're like, oh my gosh, you're covered in mud. Or maybe it's a rainy weekend, so you're going to have people walk them off, like take their shoes off. Having those booties stocked and ready to go could be good as well. As a side note, agents that host open houses on a regular basis, it's been proven that visitors often prefer individually wrapped candies over like cookies or opened goods. So just kind of think about that. If you're going to have something that you hand out snack wise, you may want it to be individually wrapped. My next activity on Wednesday is going to be, I'm going to map the location of where the signs are going to go. How many do I need? Where will they go? I'm going to figure out all those details. And I would recommend, remember I said, hey, it should take like no more than like 2 or 3 signs to get to the property, ideally in an ideal world. I'm still going to have no less than 6 signs, and more is better. You can never have too many open house signs. So plaster them everywhere, every route you can get to that property. Make sure it's clear. Make sure if there's a long stretch between this corner and next corner that you have a sign to keep people going in the right way so they don't feel like they missed something. So more signs are better. I would recommend no less than 6. And you should plan for one at all main access points of those main roads. Have one at least on each corner, and then one at the open house itself, or maybe you have the flags that you're going to put at the open house. That one works too. Branded signs are best over like generic open house signs because people don't get lost or distracted on the way, right? If we have like generic signs and we get to the next corner and there's like 3 open house signs, they might get distracted and can't figure out which route to go. And you may also want to consider finding like a teenager or someone that you can train to put out and pick up your signs for a small fee. Right? One of the best things that I ever did was let somebody else do my dirty sign work. They would come and pick up the signs from me at the property, put them all out, and then about 10 minutes before the open house was supposed to finish, they would start picking those signs up for me so that by the time it was supposed to be done, they are returning the signs to me at the house itself so that I could close up, because I don't like closing up the open house until those signs are down. So just something to consider there, especially if you live in an area where it snows or rains or it's really hot, like you get all sweaty before you even host the open house, have somebody else do it. Finally, we're going to take Wednesday to identify the neighbors that you're going to door knock to invite them to the open house. So remember, we're looking for listing leads, and we know that somebody that can see that sign is going to list their property for sale. And so I recommend knocking at least like maybe 25 homes on either side and 50 across the street, right? That gives you 100 homes that you're going to door knock before the open house. You can pare it down a little smaller if you would like. That's just my recommendation. We're going to do the actual door knocking later in the week. We're just going to identify the list of homeowners so that we know who to address when we go to knock and whether they are owners or renters. Okay, also on Wednesday, I'm going to identify any for sale by owner properties in the neighborhood or expired listings. And then for those expireds, I'm probably going to go back 12 to 18 months to see if anything was pulled off the market or anything expired in the last 12 to 18 months in the neighborhood. And I'm going to have that list with me when I go door knock the neighbors, because I'm also going to stop by those for sale by owners and those expired properties to see if they are still available and if they're going to be around after the open house in case any of the buyers that pass through the open house might be interested in their property so that I can bring them by. Remember, I'm looking to level up my game. So if somebody passes through that open house and they don't like that house, but what they describe matches an expired listing or for sale by owner, I want to be the one that say, actually, there's an expired listing and I talked with the owner and they're still interested in selling and I'm done here at 2. So I can actually meet you over at that property at 2:30, right? I'm trying to be the one to win that lead over. So just a couple things to like, go above and beyond those FSBOs and expireds. Any questions about Wednesday prep work? All right, moving on to Thursday. Thursday, we're actually going to start promoting the property. I'm going to send an email out to my database to invite them to the open house. So I'm probably going to have my database tagged with like local, or maybe even tagged with the neighborhood in which they live, right? So I can be specific. Be sure to include the address, the time of the open house, and details about the listing when you send it out to them. We want them to feel welcome and to send their friends and family by. It's also an additional interaction with your database and potential for buyer referrals. Okay. After you email your database, then I'm going to post it on social media. I'm going to post to both my personal and my business pages, as well as I'm going to share it to any home groups, area happening groups, and the same types of groups for areas that may be considering commuting areas or where people are moving from, right? So my main service areas in the Bay Area of California, we're about an hour from San Francisco. So if I'm promoting my open house, I'm going to promote it on, like, there's a Travis Air Force Base homes for sale and rent page. There's Solano County open houses. There's what's going on in Solano County. I'm looking for all of those types of groups. In addition, in the Bay Area, San Francisco, that area, I'm going to look for groups down there, and I'm going to share that listing down there, because I can guarantee you in Solano County, their money's going to go a lot further and houses are a lot cheaper, and you're going to get a bigger yard than you would in San Francisco. So for a fraction of what it would cost in San Francisco, they can now move and commute to work. It's a 45-minute drive, depending on your commute time. Otherwise, it could be a 2-hour drive. So, but I'm going to promote it to them as well to try to pull some potential buyers from that area up into our area as clients. Okay, so commuting areas are where people are moving from. We're going to call the neighbors, right? The neighbors that we identified yesterday for door knocking, or on Wednesday for door knocking. If you have their phone numbers, we're going to call them in a TCPA compliant manner. And if you have a voicemail system like SlideDial or something like that, you can always just drop out a voicemail rather than making the phone call. Okay, if you're going to do a special time for a neighbor open, so I like to have it open 30 minutes before the actual open for neighbors to come by so I can interact, because those are going to be my main seller leads. Then we'll let them know that we've set aside a time for them, but they are welcome anytime during the open house. Okay, so make those phone calls in a TCPA compliant manner. Again, we're trying to build relationships and have touches with those neighbors, because we know people are going to be selling their houses. Finally, on Thursday, we're going to want to outline the expectations. Okay, so if you're the listing agent, I'm going to communicate those expectations directly with the sellers. If there's another agent that's the listing agent, I'm going to send them an email with instructions. We want to make sure that the seller knows to leave the home an hour before the open house and plan not to return until 30 minutes after the end of the open house. In addition, I'm going to ask them to remove all their valuables and any prescription medication and any weapons, or at least tuck them away and out of sight. And I always recommend not to put things in top drawers. It's better to put them in lower drawers if they're tucking them away. Sometimes people have a habit of walking through other people's houses and opening the top drawer of their dresser. It's a bad habit. Don't do that, but they do. Finally, I'm going to ask them to leave the house show ready. The home should be picked up, dirty clothes and dishes out of sight, all pet items removed from the house along with their pets, and to let them know that I'll provide feedback for them at the end of the day, right? We're setting up those expectations so that when we walk into that house, it's ready to go. Any question about our Thursday activities? All right, moving on to Friday. Friday is the day we're going to head out and start knocking on doors. Again, I would recommend knocking 25 on either side of the property, 50 across the street. We're going to invite those neighbors to the open house. It's a great time to connect, to build relationship, and to ask them to come by and check it out. I usually have something specifically for the neighbors that invites them to the open house that I leave behind if they don't answer, or I can hand to them when they do answer. I used to have door knockers. I talked about this previously, but I used to have like door hangers, and they had "you're invited to the open house," and then it had like a blank spot on it. And that allowed me to put those clear Avery labels. I could print the dates, the times, the address on those labels and stick it on those 100 door knockers for the weekend. It allowed me to buy, you know, like 1,000 in bulk and set myself up for success and just put those labels on as part of my prep work. So you could do something like that, or you could just print them up their own little flyer that invites them to the open house. In addition, on Friday, I'm going to go buy those for sale by owners and those expired listings. I'm going to knock on their doors as well. And I'm going to leave like a handwritten note behind if they don't answer. So I'm going to pre-write those handwritten notes just stating that, hey, I'm hosting an open house in the weekend. Wanted to see if your house was still available. Right. So we're just leaving that message behind so that we know who is still interested in selling their properties. Number one, we can follow up with them and potentially get that listing after the open house. And number two, if we have a buyer that wants to do it, then we can double end that transaction. Message to the expired listings. Here's an example would be, hello, Mr. and Mr. Expired. My name is Amy with Blank Realty Group. Again, I see your home expired a month ago or a week ago. There's a listing at blank 123 Sample Street that is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home listed at $550. I'm holding the open house tomorrow from 2 to 4. And we have been giving massive attendance in this area. Should we have additional buyers that are interested in the open house, would you be open to reviewing offers on your home if it's a good match for one of our buyers? Right? If they answer yes, then you could ask, okay, may I preview your home so that I might present the features to a qualified buyer, right? We're standing there at their door knocking, so it's a good time to like, hey, can I preview the home? You can use the same basic script for a for sale by owner. So again, that is, hello, Mr. or Mrs. Expired. My name is Amy with blank company. I see your home expired blank time ago. There's a listing at blank address that is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home listed at $550,000. I'm holding an open house tomorrow from 2 to 4, and we have been getting massive attendance in this area. Should we have additional buyers that are interested in the open house, would you be open to reviewing offers on your home if it is a good match for one of the buyers? If they answer yes, it would be, okay, may I preview the home so I might present the features to qualified buyers? Okay, super simple. Finally, on Friday, if you are hiring someone to do your signs for you, you want to confirm with them the time for setup and time for teardown. And when I hire somebody to do signs for me, just so you know, I usually print up a map of the area and I put X's on all the corners where I want those open house signs posted, or all the locations where I want an open house sign. I do this for me too if I'm setting up my own signs, because sometimes by the end of the open house, my brain's kind of like mush. I'm actually an introvert and I don't really like being around people. So hosting the open house sucks all my energy away and I'm drained by the end of it. And so like trying to remember where all 8 signs got put becomes kind of difficult for me by the end of the day. So I make myself a map too of where all the signs were located. So it makes it easy for me to go pick them up, or for somebody else to drop them off or pick them up. So I do a map for that. Any questions on our Friday activities? All right. Then we move into Saturday or Sunday, the day of our open house. We have our pre-show entertainment, which is where we repost on social media, the same sites and groups as your previous posts. Little like side note there, if you keep track of, if I have a house in this city, I post in these groups. If we have that as part of our system and process, makes it really easy when we go to do that post. We just pull up the list of where it needs to get shared and we pop it in all those groups as well. So write down where you're going to share those open houses, make it part of your system. We're going to review the listing details and the Google Drive folder that I created to make sure everything is there and is accurate, and that I know everything that there is to know about that property. Okay, this might require, if I'm not the listing agent, a call the listing agent of, hey, I've reviewed all the reports, I've reviewed the disclosures, I've looked at the property, I've been by the house. What else do I need to know? Right? Ask questions. Keep in mind that balloons are like candy for adults. They draw people in like crazy, so put them on your signs. In addition, it makes it easy for people to follow your signs and not get distracted by other agents' signs and other agents' open houses. Be consistent in your balloon color on all the signs. And then I'm going to arrive early to the open house. If I'm doing my own signs, I'm going to arrive at least 45 minutes early before that neighbor open, or before somebody should be walking through that door. If someone else is doing my signs, and oftentimes I arrive 30 minutes early. Okay, when I arrive, what my goal is I'm opening all the curtains. I'm turning on all the lights, even if it's the middle of the day in the summer. I'm adjusting the temperature in the house so that it's comfortable. The house should shine, right? So I may also bring some smell good with me in case I need to freshen up at the house. Having just some vanilla extract with you can go a long ways. If you heat up one of the burners on the stove and then put a drop of vanilla extract on it, it actually makes the whole house smell like fresh baked cookies. So just a little side note there. It doesn't have to be something overwhelming. If sometimes I walk into people's houses and they have those like plugins in the wall and it's an overwhelming smell. Sometimes I go through and like unplug those when I go to host my open house, just so the smell is delightful and not overwhelming. In addition, as part of that pre-show, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the home to make sure the valuables are out of sight, meds, weapons are all put away. There aren't any undies or bras laying about. And I also pick up any bath mats in the bathrooms and tuck those away or hang them over the edge of the bathtub. I just don't want people walking on bath mats. I'm also going to set up my sign-in table and I'm going to make sure everything is ready to go. Once the house is ready to go, then that's when I leave to go start putting my signs out. I want to make sure that if I'm putting my own signs out, when I'm done doing the open house signs and I go to open that door, if there's somebody standing at the door, it's ready for them to walk in. Okay, so I do all the prep work and all the turn on and everything ahead of time. Okay, when I do start putting out my signs, I always start with the furthest away and I work my way back to the house. That way I don't have people following the house to the sign to the open house that was a block away and they beat me to the open house. And this may be also a time before people start showing up, a good opportunity to do like a Facebook Live post with a tour of the home. Make sure that if you do that Facebook Live that you give the dates and times for your open house and the address so that people who see it can come by. And then keep in mind, again, the pre-show should be 30 to 45 minutes before the neighborhood open or before the start time of your open house. Okay, so that's the pre-show. Any questions about the pre-show entertainment? All right, then we move to showtime. So, right, this is what we've been preparing for. I'm going to make sure all visitors sign in. Okay, I have a sign-in sheet. I tend to find that like half-page sign-in sheets that only have one person's information on them gets more accurate information than like one-page sign-ins where everybody signs their name. Just because people don't like other people looking at their information. So I usually use half sheets with a clipboard so they can sign in and then not all be standing and clumped at the table. You could also use like a QR code for a digital sign-in experience, right? In the past, I didn't like digital sign-ins because I don't like people touching my stuff, right? I don't want to have my computer there or my iPad or whatever so they can sign in on that. But then I was made aware that QR codes had become so popular and we can have a QR code on our sign-in sheet. They can scan it. They can go straight into our database, or maybe it goes to like a Jot form or a Google form where they can then sign in with their information. So super simple there, way to kind of upgrade that sign-in experience. If you did it to the like a Google Drive or a Jot form, you could actually have it lead then to your Google Drive folder with all the details for that open house. Or maybe a secondary folder, which just has like reports and disclosures for that property. So, right. So you could do it that way. I still like paper. One of the reasons I like the paper is that they sign in, I get the paper, and then as I'm having a conversation with them as they're walking through the house or answering questions for them or talking about what properties they're interested in or maybe where they live because they're thinking about selling, I can actually flip that piece of paper over and start making notes, what they were wearing, who was with them, so that I remember who that person was when they passed through the open house. So I do like half sheets of paper for that because I still like to take notes. For me, and I would recommend for you as well, signing in is a non-negotiable, right? Sometimes I also provide feedback forms on the home so I can provide that to seller and the other agent, but the whole purpose of my open house is to collect leads and potential buyer or seller leads, it's lead generation. So if somebody doesn't want to sign in, there's usually a reason for that. They probably don't need to see the open house. Okay, so I make it non-negotiable. Let's see. I do have, so part of my sign-in sheet, sometimes I just use like a blank sign-in sheet that has like name, number, just so you know, on my sign-in sheet, I don't ask them if they have an agent, right? Don't ask, don't tell is my policy. So I don't ask them if they're working with another agent. I let them tell me that information. And most of the time people lie on those anyways. Okay. I'm going to ask them questions as they pass through the open house. Like, oh, have you been looking for homes long? Oh, how are you seeing those other homes, right? So I'm going to like kind of slush out what they're doing and how they're getting into homes, or if they don't have an agent or have an agent that way, versus asking a question on a sign-in sheet. Because again, they're probably going to mark yes because they don't want you to contact them in the future. And then sometimes those sign-in sheets have like a feedback form of the property itself. Like, hey, can you rate the kitchen? Or what did you think of this property? It's listed at X. Do you think it's priced appropriately? And that way I can provide feedback to either my seller or somebody else's seller if I'm hosting their open house. If I can provide value to another agent for them letting me host their home open, then the next time they have a house that comes on the market, they're going to be like, hey, Amy, do you want to host it open? Right? Because I provided them value. So sometimes providing feedback is a win. While I'm there at the open house, I'm going to make sure to engage all visitors. I'm going to ask them if they've seen other homes, how they're seeing them, what they're looking for, what their time frame is, what's spurring them to come through the open house today. I'm trying to get information from them. I'm also trying to build relationships. Okay. Safety tips for your open house. If the weather isn't horrible, I leave the doors open, both front and back doors. And I make sure that there's ways to exit from the backyard as well. So I go and look at like the gates and make sure they're not locked. Okay. That way, if there's ever a dangerous situation, I can escape. Okay. In addition, I never allow myself to be cornered. I always keep myself between the exit and the visitors. Okay. I always have an exit plan. And then also, if someone ever comes in and you just don't feel right about it, step outside. Don't question your feelings. And then my other policy that I recommend everybody instilling is that don't host open houses by yourself. Ask a lender partner, an insurance agent, another agent to host with you, or bring someone along as security, maybe your spouse or an adult child, friend, someone. Have somebody else there. It's less likely that something is going to happen if you have somebody with you and you're not by yourself. If you invite another agent to host the open house with you, discuss in advance how you're going to handle those leads. Or this might be a good opportunity to reach out to a brand new agent in your office and invite them to come shadow you during the open house so they can learn how to throw a stellar open house just for the experience of being there. Now you've got security, they're getting experience, you keep all the leads. My first choice for sharing an open house with somebody would be to share it with a lender partner. I'm going to create a lender relationship with somebody that's willing to show up at open houses on the weekend. They get all the leads from that open house just like I would. Okay, that way both of us are following up with those leads. My goal during my conversation is to set appointments at the open house. I'm going to set appointments for buyer presentations, to show them the other properties, to set listing appointments. The more commitment that you can get from someone at the open house versus we'll touch base later this week, is more likely they are to show up and continue that conversation with you. So set the appointments. Okay. And then finally, before you go, open house is done. It's come and gone. Before I leave that house, I'm going to record a thank you video. And I'm going to tell you more about that here in a second in our follow-up plan. But any questions about during the open house? If you're going to do like food or candies or waters, like take the time. If you're going to spend the money to do that, number one, I don't think it's necessary. People don't walk in the open house, look around, be like, oh, they don't got any food, I'm leaving, right? I've never had that happen. That being said, if you are going to have it, I would at least get labels printed up, like branded to you so that you can slap those labels on the water bottles, or maybe send them out the door with a packet of popcorn or something to make it fun. Maybe you like buy the bags of individual servings of popcorn or the microwave popcorn, and you say something like, you know, the label should say something like, thanks for popping by our open house, right? And then brand it with your contact information. Same thing with any candies or anything that you're going to offer. I'd make sure those are branded so they're walking away with your information. All right. When you're done with the open house, return the house back to how it was when you found it. Turn off the lights, adjust the temperature. If there were things that you tucked out of way, I always make a note of what I've moved or changed in the house when I walked in so that I can move or change it back. Okay, so I'm trying to leave that house exactly like it was when I got there, if not nicer. I clean up any mess that was made. Make sure you've got a couple like rag towels in your trunk or paper towels and maybe some Windex or something so that you can clean up any messes that were made. So just make sure you leave it. And again, if I am doing my own signs, I'm going to go to the end of that open house time. Maybe it was 4 o'clock. I'm going to shut down the house, lock it up. Or sometimes what I do too, if I'm doing my own signs, is I leave the house open. Well, I don't leave it open, but I leave it like it is, like during the open, I lock the door and then I start picking up those signs first before I start closing down, only because I don't want somebody coming to the property after all the lights are off and the windows are closed and I'm getting ready to lock up, because it creates a safety concern. So oftentimes I will lock the door, start picking up signs. I usually start at the house and work my way out and then circle back to the house and then close the house back down for the day, to return it back to the owners. Okay, any questions about the open house itself? All right. Then, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert. That's the end of my day. I have those 2 hours or 2.5 hours of being people oriented is all I can handle. I go home and I take a nap and I'm done for the day. My follow-up happens on Monday, which is why we start our open house plan on Tuesday so that we can roll in Monday with that follow-up plan. So once the house is over, now you get to reap the rewards. The number one thing to do is going to be to add all of those leads into your database. Okay, for all contacts that we don't have an appointment scheduled with, we're going to make sure that we set all visitors on that 12x1 plan that we talked about during the data or lead generation day. That's where we're going to contact them daily for the first week. Okay, if you want to know what that plan looked like, go back and review that lead generation day where we talked about how to follow up with them, but we're going to connect with them at least 12 times during that first week. For the open house leads, I recommend your first contact is going to be the thank you video text message. So before I leave the house, I pick a key feature of the house. Maybe the kitchen is gorgeous, or maybe they have the ugliest fireplace that you've ever seen. Whatever that is going to remind those people what house it was, I'm going to pick that key feature. That's going to be my backdrop for the video. And then I'm going to record a message just thanking them for coming to the open house, and that I look forward to helping them with any real estate needs that they might have, whether it be connected with that house or any other home they might be interested in, right? I want to set the tone that, hey, I'm here to help you. It doesn't have to be this house. Okay, so I'm going to record that on Sunday before Saturday. When I leave the open house, I'm going to send it out to them on Monday. Secondly, if you have their address, I'm going to send them a thank you note in the mail. Okay, on the next day, I'm going to set them up on a property search, right? So I'm just kind of walking you through some of what those 12 touches might be. I'm going to set them up on a property search. I'm going to call them to let them know that I did set them up and what criteria, and ask them what changes they would like made. That's my call to action. What changes would you like, right? I'm going to leave them a message, shoot them over. If I don't hear back from them day 3, I'm going to send them a text message asking if they got my voicemail from the day before and the email with the potential listings that might match their criteria, and if what changes they would like me to make. Okay. By the end of Wednesday, I will have contacted them 5 out of 12 times. Right? Just with those touches, the thank you, the setting them up on the property search, the phone call, the follow-up text messages, right? 5 out of 12 times. And then remember, on Tuesday, we start the process all over again if you're hosting an open house that next weekend. Any thoughts, questions, or ahas on open houses?
Hey, Amy, so
Yeah.
one thing that I've always kind of struggled with, it also might be speed to lead that we chat about so much is I guess I definitely like the idea of Monday, but I have had several instances where like I needed to get back right away. Like I know it's kind of like a gray area. I guess it's like whatever time you have available sometimes. Um, I know I won clients because had an open house Saturday, and I found literally by like 4 o'clock that afternoon they were already calling a Zillow agent to look at a different house. Luckily, I followed like my gut instinct to realize that like, wait, these people are hot and heavy right now, and I was able to thankfully convert them. But it's always something. I guess it seems like it's almost like an art more than it's a science.
It is an art more than a science. I agree with that. And I do agree speed to lead. So you could be sending that thank you text message as soon as you record it the day of, you're taking and going through those lead sheets and throwing that out to everybody so that you're making that connection. But that's also why I talk about like setting the appointment at the open house and not waiting to follow up to set an appointment. So if you've got somebody that's like, a really big buyer, that's number one. I've got a list of just about every house in the city in that open house drive. So I can be like, oh, you wanted a 4-bedroom, or you wanted to see other homes like this one, or you wanted a pool, right? So I've got all those lists to send them. And from there, I'm going to be like, hey, let's set a time. Like, are you available tomorrow, or are you available Monday at 3 p.m.? We can go see some of those other houses that you might be interested in. So I'm trying to set that appointment at the open house so that my follow-up can happen on Monday.
Cool. Awesome. All good
Yeah.
stuff though. Definitely I've seen a lot of this like tried and true and thank you.
Absolutely.
If I could mention something also, I
Absolutely.
usually will bring my thank you cards with me. So before I leave for my open house, I'll write my little thank you notes to everybody that came by the open house, and I'll have the envelopes, the stamps, everything. So as I'm closing up and driving away, I'm dropping those in the mailbox right then and there. So that way it's already starting the process and I'm not putting that off later on, because we all know life happens and sometimes that follow-up is hard.
Absolutely. That's a great idea as well, to have those thank you cards, stash them in that open house box that you have with you, so you always have them available. Gloria, did you have something?
I got the same feedback that the other gentleman, Stephen did, as I have the same issue as people that are coming in are hot right then and there. You almost want to follow them out because you recognize a hot lead.
Yep.
And I like your idea of trying to set the appointment right then and there if you can't leave right then.
Absolutely. And you could always time block some time. Like if your open house goes 2 to 4, you could have blocked on your schedule like 5 to 7 that evening, or 4:30 to 6:30 available to show properties. That way, if you've got somebody that walked through that has some other properties they are interested in, you can actually set the appointment later that day to go show them properties. Absolutely.
And I did have another question about your canvassing the neighborhood for expireds.
Yeah.
And how do you keep, like, you're bringing a buyer, say you're trying to represent that buyer with the seller of the expired listing. And it's like everything has to move so quickly. How do you keep that buyer as your buyer without that buyer just going directly to the seller of the owner of the expired listing and bypassing you altogether?
Yeah, so a couple ways to do that. Number one is you can always have a packet of, buyer representation agreements with you. In California, it's the buyer representation and broker compensation agreement. So you can always have a packet of those so that before you actually go see the house, they're signing that you're going to represent them either in the purchase. You could do it property specific or general. So that form allows you to do either or. Obviously, general is always better because now you've locked in that buyer. But you could always make it property specific, and you may not want to tell them that, hey, this is an expired listing. You may just want to tell them that it's an off-market listing so that they don't know what the circumstances are with the seller. They're going to assume you have a agency relationship with that seller, or somebody does.
Okay, that's a good idea. I think I will do that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Does everybody have more time? It's 10 o'clock. That took a whole hour. I've got probably 30 more minutes of content, but I can probably lump it in, I don't know, later this week or so if you guys don't have time today, or we can continue on. It's up to you. You let me know. Deanna says yes, she's good. Anybody be angry with me if I continue on? Let's go that route.
No,
It will be
keep going.
recorded. Say that again, Gloria.
I said, you keep going. It's hard to go back to recordings.
All right, perfect. All right, so let's talk about niche markets, the VIP, and forget the farm. Okay. So we're going to talk on creating your very own VIP group. Oh, first the niche. So we're going to talk about what a niche market is and how to grow a niche. Then we're going to talk about creating your very own VIP group. I'll figure this out in a minute. And then we're going to talk about how to take the farm out of the farm for those of you that thought it wasn't quite thinking big enough. And then we'll wrap up today and be done with our lead gen methods. So let's head on to niche market. So a niche market is a market where you lead generate to a specific demographic. So it might be single dads, it could be foster families, it could be families going through divorce, military, teachers, law enforcement, horse owners, gymnastics family, right? The list goes on and on and on. There's no limit to what your niche might be. And if you want to break into niche marketing, one way maybe to look at your database and who you've already served and who's in that database and what demographic most of your past clients fall into. Okay, because you're already serving that community. Another way to choose a niche would be to identify who you're passionate about serving in your community. Right? Maybe you've been through a divorce and you want to help others go through that experience. Maybe you're part of the military community, or maybe you are part or want to be part of a homesteading community and you to help those that want to be more self-sufficient, right? There's no wrong or right answer. Just somebody that you're passionate about. Once you identify the niche, you're going to need to develop a strategy. Okay? Remember, strategies, systems, and processes. That's really what it all comes down to, right? So to develop your strategy for your niche, first you want to create your value proposition, right? Why do you want to serve this portion of the community, and what do you bring to the table? Why would they want to choose you? So you're going to spend some time creating that value proposition. Once you have your value proposition established, then you're going to want to develop a plan to target and engage people that fall into that demographic, right? So how are you going to find members of your niche? Will you hold or attend meetings or events? Can you email communicate with them? Do you have strategic alliances that are also into those communities? Can you make TCPA compliant phone calls? So for instance, right, you may want to create or attend support groups for foster families if you fall into that group yourself, right? Or maybe you create a strategic alliance with a divorce or a probate attorneys, right? You need to be able to find your people. So think about who's in those communities. Maybe draw it out. Again, you could create your own support group. Like maybe you've gone through a divorce previously. So maybe you're like, man, I'm a good person to like lead a group for people going through a divorce to get help, not just with selling their house, but just support in general, or foster families, or adoption, or homesteading community, right? Or we might want to make strategic alliances with other people in those communities. So if we're thinking about serving the divorce community, then we may want to make relationships with divorce attorneys, because those are the people that are usually on the forefront of finding out who is getting a divorce, right? Or again, probate attorneys as well. Maybe you want to capitalize on people that have passed and how to help that community. Okay, so find the niche and then think about how you're going to find additional members in that niche. Once we find them, then you need to develop an engagement strategy. How will you regularly connect with this community? We want to identify the frequency and the method of those communications, right? You want to figure out how to serve them and how to communicate your value proposition. You may also want to develop educational content, right? Or host events or set up one-on-one appointments. So Maybe I'm gonna serve people that are in the, let's think here, maybe they're going through the pre-foreclosure process, people who are behind on their payments, right? Maybe that's gonna be my niche. We may want to develop educational content that has like options available to them or ways to handle this or how to get into a rental after you've been foreclosed on, right? Or we may even want to host events to help give guidance or support, right? Or we could set up a time with one-on-one appointments, set up a Calendly where people can actually like read the educational content and then like book a session with you to get help. Okay. Once you have your strategy developed for how you're going to target and engage with your niche, then you want to think long-term and on a regular basis to continue interacting to get people to be able to grow your database with that niche and how to turn those into potential customers and clients, right? I recommend when you develop this, you probably want to reevaluate it about every 12 weeks. To see how you're doing. Is it successful? Do I need to change something? Does something need tweaked, right? What's working and what isn't? And then we want to make sure that we're consistently lead generating and marketing to grow those contacts. Okay, so we can think outside. This is just an idea to like make you guys think bigger of, well, I don't have to serve a whole neighborhood, or I don't have to host open houses, or right, if I've got something in common, I can serve that neighborhood. One of the really common ones is like the military community. They're really tight community. The other one is law enforcement. Like it's really easy to kind of plug into that law enforcement community. If you're a spouse or you are retired law enforcement, oftentimes it's much easier to get into that community and serve those people. Any questions about niche markets? All right, moving on to our VIP group is you can use a VIP group to step up your database referral game, okay? The goal here is that you want to put people in this group that are going to give you a minimum of 1 referral per year and ideally 2, right? We want to make sure that we choose members wisely for the VIP group because they're going to be your cheerleaders and the people that you're going to be in deeper relationship with. When we talk about like our database, right, it's the 19 to connect with people that aren't engaging with us. And then we have our 36 to convert for those that are engaging. And our VIP group is even going to be at a deeper level of connection. We're going to spend the most time with those people there. It could be community leaders. It could be friends. It could be family. It could be other business owners. It might be past clients. I would recommend that you keep this group at no more than 50 and that you let people know that they've been invited to be part of your elite VIP group. And you might come up with some catchy and fun name, right? In addition, we want to make sure that we're providing them value. So these 50 contacts are always going to get a monthly phone call instead of just a regularly quarterly phone call. And we want to make sure that it's relationship based. It's going to lead to real estate, but we want to make sure that we're really diving in on the relationships with these 50 people. Anytime you call them, you want to make sure that you have like a market moment or a stat to share, like rates are down 0.75% since last month, or the market's up, or whatever it is. Have just a market moment that you can share. So you can be like, hey, I was just calling to check in with you. And I also wanted to share that, right? You might run like a quarterly happy hour where you invite them to happy hour. It would maybe always be at the same place, at the same time, on the same day of the week. So it might always be like the first Thursday from 5 to 7 of every 3rd month, right? That's going to lead to higher attendance. If they can throw it on their calendar now for the rest of the year, that's going to lead to higher attendance. So invite them to some sort of event once per quarter. You're going to make sure to personally call them on their birthday. Previously in our database, we talked about just sending out a birthday card. These people get a birthday call on their birthday. And you also want to send them some sort of a small gift. Okay, these people get a call and a birthday present. Some other things that might keep your VIP engaged and make them feel special is that you could always send them like a boxed gift once or twice per year to announce to the member that they've made it to the VIP group, right? Make it fun and let them know what they have to do to stay there. So, right, so it's okay to send a gift out and be like, hey, you've made it to the Amy Petard VIP elite group. Welcome. The way that you got here is because you sent 2 referrals last year and you earned your spot in this elite group. In order to stay here, continue to refer people to me, and you will remain in the group, or, you know, whatever it is. In addition to your happy hours that you're going to invite them to, those are more like casual events. We want to host 2 events for just this group. Right? One might be like a large scale event where you go all the way. It could be like a New Year's party, maybe a Friendsgiving event. That could be a fun one, or something big and fun. Select a theme and make them want to come. Your goal is that you're posting about this and sharing about this VIP group, and people want to get in your VIP group. They want to go to these events. They feel like they missed out on Friendsgiving. And the key to get there is to send you referrals and earn your spot in that group. The second event, so one is going to be a big event, right? Large scale. The second is going to be a party with a purpose. So you can either host your own, this would be like for a charity. So, right. So host your own charity event, or you could find out what galas are in your community and maybe like buy a table for them and invite them to fill your table. Could be something like the first 8 to RSVP, get a spot. Maybe there's only 8 spots at your table, right? And then maybe you have 3 or 4 or 5 gala events that you have earmarked on your calendar to invite people to and get tables for. And then maybe those first 8 that made it to the first event, they don't get invited to the second event or third event, right? So that everybody has the opportunity to attend, or maybe everybody gets invited, but you just let them know if they're the first to RSVP that because they attended the previous event, if somebody else wants to go, they get the spot first, right? So it's how you communicate it, but inviting to galas, crab feeds, right? Whatever it is, make it fun and make it so it serves the community. The touches are designed to make sure that you're getting referrals. So you want to create experiences that make them want to stay in the group. And then you want to reevaluate your group often, right? Look at your list. Are they taking your phone calls? Are they sending referrals? Are they joining in with events? Are they participating? If they aren't participating, remove and replace, right? That is a valuable spot in your group. You're spending a lot of time with these people. If they're not participating, they're not referring, then we want to remove them from your group and replace it with somebody who will. Okay. Any thoughts about the VIP group? All right. Let's.
I
Oh,
do
go
have a
ahead.
question, Amy.
Yeah.
So are you doing that already?
We do not do the VIP group with our people, mainly because I am really out of production at this point. I don't do a whole lot of real estate production. It's mostly teaching, and then I have another business.
Okay, no, that's fine. No, I definitely like the idea of it. I'm just wondering if anyone has actually had like the bandwidth to set up this and what that's looked like.
Yeah, I would almost say that if this is something that you're interested in setting up, I would almost make it one of my primary lead gen activities. So we always say like work your database, you know, leads from listings, and then we have 3 additional legs of lead generation. I would make this at least year one of my primary sources, because it should be generating these referral leads from your database. And so this would be one of my main focuses for sure,
Gotcha,
as one of those 3. Absolutely. All right. The next section is forget the farm. If you don't want to do a traditional farm, or you're thinking bigger than like 400 homes, you could select a whole side of town or a whole zip code, or depending on the size of your town, you could pick like the whole town, right? The idea would be that you can pick an area where you can show value. And then this is going to be your primary objective. So every workday, or maybe let's even pare it down to like 3 days per week, maybe 3 days per week, we do Forget the Farm. 1 day a week, we focus on our VIP group. And 1 day a week, we do our open house prep for the open house we're going to hold that weekend. But 3 days per week, you're going to hit the streets, right? We're going to block about 3 hours each of those days to go door knock people's houses. And each day before you go out, you're going to pull the active and the sold listings for that neighborhood. Oftentimes we're probably pulling the same, like if we're going to go door knock, it's probably the same neighborhood for the whole week. So we could pull that information on Monday. And then we could door knock Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then follow up with on Friday. But anyways, you want to pull the active and sold listings for the neighborhood. I would also go ahead and pull the under contract or the pending listings. And you could even reach out, go a step further, reach out to the agents that have pending listings and see if they got multiple offers. And you also will want to know before you go door knock what the average 30-year fixed rate is for that day for loans, for your regular conventional loan, right? And then we're going to go door knock with the goal of having 20 conversations per day. Okay, one trick to get more answers, and I found this to be true with our farm, is that you want to ring the doorbell, wait 30 to 40 seconds for an answer. If they don't answer, then go ahead and knock on that door, right? I'm always listening for motion too. Most of the time through the door, you can kind of hear if somebody's moving about in the house, because some older folks take longer to get through the door or to the door. Like you can hear them like moseying about with their walker or whatever. So always listen to see if it sounds like they're coming towards the door. When somebody answers their door, you can use 4 approaches. One is you can talk about a sold listing in the neighborhood. You could be supporting a new listing, or you could be supporting one that went under contract. And if there's no recent activity, then you can talk about the current market. Okay, so a script for talking about a sold property. Hey, Joe, it's Amy. Another home just sold here in the neighborhood, right? And then you could have the list of sold homes in the neighborhood. You could hand it to them, right? And it might be ones that sold that week or the week before. Then the new news is that they had a lot of activity and got an offer in only 4 days or 24 hours on the market. The good news is there's still a lot of buyers still looking. If you happen to know how many showings or how many offers, you could share that info as well, or you could spin the story of the listing. So if it didn't go into contract quick, or it didn't have a lot of activity or whatever, like figure out what a selling point would be of one of those listings and share that, right? So the new news is that they had a lot of activity and got an offer in 5 days, or the good news is there's still a lot of buyers looking. Have you heard rumors of anyone else thinking about making a move? Okay, for the most part, just so everybody knows, they're probably going to lie or not even put much thought process into it and say, no, I don't. Right. And that's okay. That's what we want them to say. If they say yes, then it's a really easy conversation of, oh, who did you hear of? Right. And we go into that. If they say no, oh, you can say that's our problem. It's a real lack of inventory. In the next 2 years, have y'all ever thought about making a move? Right. Oh, that's right. Like, no, there's a real lack of inventory in the next 2 years. Have you all ever thought about making a move? If you did move, where do you think you would go? Oh, we love this area. We always stay here. Or, oh, we've always wanted to move out of state. Do you mind if I check back in with you? Right? They'd be like, sure. Great. What's a good number to reach you at? Perfect. What's a good email? And when should I check back with you? Right. So we're just creating that follow-up plan so that we know when the follow-up, we're going to add them to our database. Right. And then you move on to the next door. Not a scary script, right? Super simple. This takes it outside your farm. You go door knock any neighborhood in your city. If there's no activity, right? So you could do the same script with like a pending sale, a sold property, a new listing. It's going to be basically the same. For no activity, it might be, hey, it's Amy. These are the latest sales here in the neighborhood. You're going to hand them over. The highest recent sale was $605,000. Have you heard any rumors of anybody else thinking about making a move? right? And then we're going to go into that again. They're probably going to lie or not even think about it and say, no, I don't. Then we're going to go into that other script like, oh, that's the problem. There's low inventory, right? Have you guys ever thought about making a move in the next couple of years? Right? For new, it could be, hey, it's Amy, your neighbor's home just hit the market. Here's the information. And we've got a listing page for all the new listings on the market. By the way, have you ever heard any rumors of anyone else thinking about making a move? Right? And if it's your listing or your property, make sure to communicate that in the script as well. But this allows you to communicate with anybody regarding any property that's come on the market that's just sold or that went pending. If you have 20 conversations 3 times per week, and we're going to figure out like 48 weeks per year, because you're probably not going to door knock between Christmas and New Year's, and you're probably going to take some vacation weeks. So we're factored in 4 weeks that you don't door knock. 20 conversations 3 times a week, 48 weeks per year. That's 2,880 conversations per year. If 1% of those actually buys or sells, that's 28 transactions at only a 1% conversion rate. Would anybody like an additional 28 transactions in their life this next year?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Right. And now we're not limited to a farm. We're not limited to open houses. Like, just go door knock a zip code or an area or pick a neighborhood, any neighborhood. And then we just want to make sure, again, this all goes back to, we want to make sure we put these people in our database and that we follow up with them appropriately. So if I talked with somebody and they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, you can follow up with me. When should I check back with you? And they're like, oh, check back in 6 months. I'm going to put a reminder in my database so it pops up as a task to follow up with Mr. Smith in 6 months. And I'm probably going to go door knock on him again, because that was the most effective way to reach him before. Even though I've got his phone number and I've got his email, I've been sending out our newsletters and other things with that information, but I'm going to go back and door knock his door to follow up with him to see how they're thinking and if they've thought about any further about moving out of state or downsizing their house, right? Whatever it was that we talked about. Okay, so that's niche markets, VIP groups, and forget the farm, in addition to open houses today. So we talked about 4 additional forms of lead generation today. Remember, you should only have 3 additional in addition to your database and leads from listings. So pick and choose wisely with what you think sounds like fun and sounds like where you want to put your energy, time, and effort. Let's see, tomorrow we have Grow Your Business with Leverage. We'll talk about the appropriate ways and when you should add leverage and how to do that. And then on Friday, we're going to talk about creating an exit plan by building wealth. If you want to know when today's training is up, where the recording is posted, there's a link that you can click on and register yourself for that. And then Abby will send you a specific message to let you know when this training is up and the recording is ready. But that's kind of our plan for the rest of the week. I appreciate you guys hanging with me an extra 30 minutes to cover those other little tidbits there. Any questions, thoughts, or ahas from today's training? Is anyone planning to implement either open houses, niche, you're welcome, Stephen, VIP, or forget the farm into your lead generation plan?
I'm going to do the niche and open houses.
Very good, Gloria.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Real quick, Amy. So one thing that I am excited about, some actually ex-Air Force. So I know, obviously, you guys mentioned Travis. I used to be at AMC, Air Mobility Command. I know I speak another language when I start mumbo jumboing military Air Force words, but
yeah,
that is, and I just left due to our deployment tempo. I actually left after 13 years of service. So looking at doing some more military specific events is something I've talked about for the last 6 months, but I know I really want to drill down. Is there anything that people do at your brokerage for that specifically?
I don't know that anybody specifically has a marketing system and process in place for Air Force. A lot of agents that I've talked to that are Air Force, they tend to focus more on the referrals. So they try to make connections with agents at other bases, especially ones that kind of transfer back and forth PCS between the bases.
Yeah.
And I know that it's hard to get base activity. So we've had a couple agents that talk about it in an effort to try to do seminars and different things actually on base available to them so that they can learn more about buying houses or even picking up investment properties at the different places that they work, or, you know, kind of what happens. So just that education portion, I think, would be a key part in that process. I know when I talk with, like, our business was 75% military clients, and it was just that educational piece seemed to be lacking as far as them feeling comfortable and confident with buying a home, and what does that look like when I get stationed someplace else, and how do I reutilize my VA benefits. So just kind of going through all of that.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, fabulous. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for growing your business with leverage. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for hanging out an extra 30 minutes. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys all have a fabulous day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Absolutely.